Hi, I'm James Smith. Uh, just a few moments of your time to talk about a campaign that we're beginning, and that is our mustard seed campaign. And by us, I mean SOW, or SO, uh, Community Development Corporation. So started out of a labor of love that we had about 10, 15, almost 20 years ago when we started SOW Youth Outreach on the west side of Chicago. I had spent many years, probably past 30 years, working with children, and I realized working back at my home on the west side of Chicago, particularly the Austin community, that the programs were either run by the city, where child care was looked at like man, you just babysitting, or you just watching kids. You ain't doing nothing. You throwing out a ball and y'all going. And so we took it and we professionalized it. We got a daycare license, and I was the director, and we worked with about 300 kids a year. One of the biggest problems that we found was that we function primarily on public dollars. And those public dollars, man, they come when they come. They could be, at one point when I was really crushed with when we just had to dissolve it, was they were 4 months late paying me $20,000. And the money that we usually gained over summer, we had spent. I was functioning basically on, for the past 3 to 4 years, myself and my sister were probably making about $16,000 almost each. We put a lot of that back in. I did make some other monies on the side, but I always put it back in so that we could make sure we could maintain a great staff, so that when our ship came in, I had hoped to hook in with my alumni from Wheaton College to get some kind of funding. And then when I talked to a fundraiser, she told me that she probably shouldn't take my money, because a lot of that money is tied up with people that know these folks. These kids that they're funding and supporting come from their community, and that I should look into my community to fix itself. That's ridiculous. Like when we got released from slavery and promised 40 acres and a mule and never really got that, and never really got the infrastructure or even an industrial revolution for ourselves so that we could provide food, clothing, and shelter for ourselves. And it just became the base from there, a community of hunger, a community of poverty. We know that poverty breeds contempt, or poverty breeds crime as well, when it's at a level and a type that we've suffered through here in America. But there is hope. This GoFundMe piece, I looked at it and I said, man, if we could just get going, if we could just get the seed money, the mustard seed, as the Bible says, you just get a little bitty tiny mustard seed, we put it in the ground, and it'll grow up and flourish. We knew that with soul, we needed, at first we really only needed about $20,000 a year to function that would have given us a buffer to be able to keep going and keep doing what we were doing. Working with homeless children, working with children that were in foster care, working with children when parents had 2 jobs. But all the kids were our kids. All the kids could go anywhere in the city that we wanted, and they behaved just as you expect children to behave. Polite and well-mannered. It was in them. We expected them. We raised the bar and expected that bar of them, and they reached the task. We tutored them. We shared the gospel with them. We did all these things. Now, this mustard seed piece, and I'm trying to cut it short, trying not to go way into my history, so functioned on probably a couple of $100,000 a year, and we had to keep putting it in because we didn't own property. We didn't have any way of getting the things to come in. So the idea was to found a new organization, a new not-for-profit, and it's called SOW, or SO, as in sowing seeds, Community Development Corporation. If you look in the newspaper, if you look in online with regards to Zillow or Trulia, you'll find that in the Austin area, the 60644 zip code, there's a 20, 30, 40 pieces of property that are foreclosed on that need plumbing, electricity, and drywall, and some roofing, and some walls, and some grass. And what we want to do is we want to get enough money to take at least one house. We'll start with one house. I prefer to get enough for us to do 6 months worth of work. 6 houses. And then we can take the tradesmen and hire those tradesmen in under SOW. And what we'll do with them, we'll bring a couple of apprentices along with them to train them the job. We'll academically train them. We'll train them with regards to their money. And it'll be a paid internship. We won't pay top dollar for this house. But if you look in the 60644 zip code, you can find a couple of houses for 20, a couple of houses for 30,000. It probably would take us between 45 and 60,000 to rehab one of those duplexes. And then the goal would be that 40, let's say 60,000 plus 30, it's about $90,000 that we'll have for that house. Then we put another 10,000 on top that SO will take for administrative costs for each building, each unit that we have. And what we'll do is we'll tie it up and we'll find somebody that's qualified, that's renting in the neighborhood. We have some funders that will actually lend them money or give them a mortgage on a house where they'll pay probably somewhere in the neighborhood of half to 3/4 to half of what they're paying for rent. And they'll own the home. And if they own it and we work with them to show them how to budget, to show them how to make sure they got the insurance, how to make sure, and if they need some employment help, we'll follow them for about 5 years. We'll hand them a house that's going to have roughly $60,000 to $90,000 worth of equity in it. But they won't be able to touch that equity until 5 years after they've held this house. And we will support them throughout that time. The thing is as we grease the wheels, as we keep going, as we plant the seed, the leaves of the mustard plant will grow broad and wide as we water it, as we fertilize it. We'll take some of that government funding that we have in the form of TIF dollars, in the form of business development dollars, in the form of the Department of Transportation, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, CHA, which will give some Section 3 monies because we'll use some people that are low income with regards to Section 8. Man, there's a lot of things that we have planned for this. But I need mustard seed faith. I need those of you that are Christians and not Christians. Can you stand with me on Matthew 25, where Jesus was separating the sheep from the goat? And the sheep were those that would give food to the hungry, clothing to the naked, housing to those that were homeless, visit those that were sick and in prison, especially those that are in prison, to give them a tie to the community so that we can bring them back in. So as opposed to continuously on an infinity type basis pay $29,000 to house them in prison, we put them in a position where they can earn $29,000 or $30,000 or $40,000 a year where they're going to pay taxes on it. Wouldn't that sound great? We do have a problem with politics in our community. We don't know how to govern. Our politicians really don't know governing. They know politicking. And so it's time for us to require of them to govern. There are some. And I know quite a few of you. LaShawn Ford, I ain't going to mention it. But, Gene Greenwood, you were one of the guys that supported us, man. And when nobody else gave us a dime, you gave Soul some money. And we rode kids with bicycles. And, man, it's a great thing. Mustard Seed Faith. Mustard Seed Campaign for SOW, Community Development Corporation. Every dime you give us, except for that little percentage that GoFundMe takes, it's a very small percentage, and it's a very great thing. Please, those of you that know me, ask your friends that you know to support what we're doing. A dime, $1, $10, $20, whatever you can afford, to just give us a little seed so that we can go forward and change the Austin community. Zip code 60644 is going to be our first point. And that point of light, once we show you, will show you what your mustard seed faith, what your mustard seed donation is. Thank you very much.